All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So the Jets are 0-7. It absolutely sucks. The Jets are basically just the ruiners of the weekend. That's like the new name for the team. You know, every Sunday, not only do they just lose, but they find new ways to lose. It is just, I mean, we've said it a million times. It's difficult to watch. It's, you know, I've talked to some fans who are like, hey, man, I'm going on the boat. I'm going to go play football. I'm going to go, shoot hoops. I'm going to go do this or do that. I just can't stomach watching this team today. And, this team was never really supposed to be all that great anyway. 10-9 wins, just wasn't really realistic. But it's how this team is performing. And I feel like as a fan base, I mean, I can only speak for me specifically. I've given out a lot of passes to this organization, right, this season, right? I'm not even judging this team really on their win-loss record. It's more so how do you look in games? That way you have a clearer picture on how to assess and how to get better moving forward, where are the weak spots, where are the points of emphasis to build upon. And I think you should kind of have that mindset with every young rebuilding team or, first-year head coaches, things like that. But in this one, I wanted to talk about the biggest problem that I have with Aaron Glenn because it was on display yesterday. No, it wasn't the loss. No, it's not being 0-7. No, it's not, the end of half debacle. Again, it was how he handled the quarterback position. This is something that the New York Jets simply cannot get right. The quarterback position, right? It's the most important position in football. When you have the position figured out, life is a lot easier. When you hit on the quarterback, life is easier. And the Jets just simply can't figure it out. But let's take a look at this thing from a timeline perspective. So the Jets were, an 0-5 football team going to London to play Denver. A good team. By the way, what a crazy win that Denver had yesterday. But in any case, they played the Denver Broncos, and Justin Fields, as a winless team, rolls out a horrific, just a nightmare performance. Right, 40-something pass. It was just a mess. 9 sacked, 55 yards taken on those sacks. It just horrible. Despite the defense looking great, despite special teams looking great, if the offense just simply had 30 more yards, we actually could have kicked a game-winning field goal. Think about that. And so exiting that game, you're thinking, okay, you know what? There's some signs of life on defense. Awesome. The special teams look good. If we can literally just get F quarterback play and not F minus quarterback play, maybe we can actually win a game. And what happens in the postgame presser? Glenn is asked by someone, hey, what exactly is going to be happening with the quarterback position, moving forward? And Glenn responds, what kind of question is that? As if the question is just, we're asking Sean McDermott if they're thinking about benching Josh Allen. Or like we're asking Coach Reed here, hey, do you think we should turn to Gardner Minshew over Patrick Mahomes? That was the type of response that Glenn had. It just felt very uncalled for. Given the context, given the record, given the game that we just saw, that question was totally fair. And so Glenn digs his heels in with Justin Fields, basically just saying like, no, he's my guy. Kind of walks back the statement. I think it was the following day, but regardless, Fields was the starter. And it's like, okay, you want to roll with Fields. He still has the upside. We are only 6 games in the NFL season. We've seen guys turn it around, right? Think back to that Darnold rookie year. It wasn't really until he had a lot of reps in the tank, and it was those games against the Houston Texans, the Green Bay Packers towards the end of the year where you're like, whoa, this guy's really, putting out some good tape. But that didn't come in week, at this part of the season. So you can definitely sell me on the idea of continuing to stick and roll with the young quarterback, the former first-round pick with the upside. Okay. But based off of what we've seen so far, he's got to play better. And we talked about this in the recap video, you need to play to his strengths. Justin Fields at this point has not shown consistency as a drop back passer. As a drop back, 5-step drop, 5-step drop, 5-step drop, 3-step drop, 5-step drop. How often do you see Justin Fields outside of the pocket? I'm talking on a design play, bootleg, play action bootleg. How many times did you see Justin Fields run? quarterback draw, direct quarterback snap, and have him take it up the field. Any sort of, keeping the ball off of a read option. It just didn't really feel like that was at the forefront of the offensive game plan. Now, you can easily tell that early in the game, they were trying to get Justin comfortable in the game by, giving him some layup throws, and it just wasn't working. Like the quick out screen to Arian Smith to try to take it upfield. It's just too slowly developing. And it started to look like a copy of the Denver Broncos game where the offense isn't getting going. And then on the other side of the football, you actually have the defense stepping up, making plays, forcing Carolina to punt the ball. At halftime, it's what, a one possession game or something? Like, the game is totally in reach. And so, you have this whole situation where Glenn is so dug in with Justin Fields. Mind you, we did not draft Justin Fields. He's not on a 5-year deal. He's not owed $100 million. There's no weird drama. Oh, you got to play Fields. You can't let his, feelings get hurt. You can't let, Fields think that someone else is the quarterback of the future moving forward. No, we've seen all these stories before with Zach Wilson. You can't upset Zach Wilson. You can't do it. You got to get rid of Mike White because we can't, have any sort of interference with Zach being the guy. We can't have any sort of locker room turnover. No, that wasn't the smart football decision. But I digress. The point is, Justin Fields is benched at halftime, right? After a whole week and a game and a winless record, where maybe the good idea is making a quarterback change. Maybe he gives you a spark. And so they decided to go with Tyrod Taylor. And the offense definitely looks better. Tyrod is actually throwing the ball, short game, intermediate stuff. He's extending a little bit. But here's my big issue. Here's my biggest problem that I've seen with Aaron Glenn so far. Whether you love Justin Fields, you like Justin Fields, or you don't like him, Aaron Glenn is the head coach of this football team and made a decision. I want to go with Justin Fields, which was questionable. And so, as a fan, I'm like, okay, you really want to go with Justin? You like, there's got to be a plan there. Not only did it not work, and we saw Tyrod Taylor at halftime, but the plan for Tyrod Taylor was save us, please. Please save us. Are you our knight in shining armor? Let's launch the ball down the field in 2 quarters of football more than the 6 previous games combined. Why did we abandon the running game? We're not down 30. We're not playing the Chiefs. We're down 13-3, 13-6. Why aren't the running backs getting the football? The Jets are built to run the football. As bad as this team is, the Jets' run blocking is actually pretty good. It's actually above average. And we just completely go away from it. Now, credit Derek Brown. He did some, the guy was a game wrecker. But it doesn't change your mindset. You cannot go, because put yourself in Avero's shoes for a second, right? You have the lead. And you know the Jets are going to be starting to try to open things up a little bit. Maybe you get a trick play, maybe you don't. But you do know that there's urgency, across the field. There's going to be a sense of urgency from the Jets to pick up yards and to change what they've been doing. After about 6 passing plays in a row, if you're Avero there, you know what's coming next. You know what's coming next. If they're starting out these drives and they're not running the football and they're just throwing it, Tyrod Taylor is not someone that I want throwing the ball. The Jets called, 27 pass plays in the second half alone with no Garrett Wilson. And yes, of course, Breece Hall was banged up. I get that. But you still have Isaiah Davis. You still have running backs. You can't just abandon one side of the football. And so, again, here's my biggest problem with this whole thing. There needs to be self-awareness. There needs to be a plan B from Coach Glenn. There has to be. I don't understand. I don't understand how there was not a plan in place for Tyrod Taylor. Again, whether you love Justin Fields, Justin Fields is Aaron Glenn's favorite player of all time. He's the hardest worker. He's the best practicer, whatever. There must be a plan in case it doesn't go well. Now, look, if you're Sean McDermott, if you're Jim Harbaugh, if you're Andy Reid, and something happens to Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, and you have the backup quarterback come in and the offense stifles and it just doesn't really seem like that there's a solid plan there. It's like, okay, you know what? These guys are just absolute warriors, or the best in the game. They don't really have like an injury history. Like, all the game plan should be built around these guys. But with New York, they are winless. They've had trouble offensively. You look at the Denver Bronco game, it was absolutely abysmal. Again, horrible. Like, this is not a part-time job for Aaron Glenn here. He's not in the facility 3 days out of the week and then kicking it for the 4 other days. No, he's spending all day in meetings, watching tape, meeting with coaches, meeting with players, running practices, doing everything, all hands on deck, coming up with the schedule, everything. Look, the Jets were a big job. We all know this, but I don't like how unprepared the New York Jets looked when Justin Fields didn't play well. It's almost like every single day they were so sold that Fields was going to play well in practice. And, who knows? I don't know how Fields is practicing. I'm not there, keeping track of anything. But I find it hard to believe that Fields is so, hesitant to pull the trigger on game day. And then, he hits the practice field and he's just launching the ball all over the field. No problem at all. And, he's completing a bunch of passes. And that's like, convincing Glenn, like, okay, like what I'm seeing in practice, like if we could just get that version out on the field. I don't know. Maybe that's happening. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe that's the reason why Glenn is so, or was so stuck with Justin here. But, understanding the Jets situation, understanding what happened last week, there needs to be that self-awareness. Throw your biases out the window. There needs to be self-awareness on what is happening with this team and what could go wrong. The biggest problem that I always had with Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, everybody from the last regime, is a failure and inability to prepare for when things don't go well, especially in obvious situations. I mean, how long it took? Think about this for a second. Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles on week 1 of the NFL season, and the Jets don't work out a quarterback for 3 weeks. We don't even bring one in. We don't even look at one other player. No one is coming in the building to work out with the team after your starting quarterback. Like, I don't even care. Like, in Madden, the logical, the common sense thing to do is, all right, well, we have a subtraction of the quarterback position, who's on the open market, who's down to, slide in potentially as the backup role and learn on the fly. Like, this is a professional organization. There never needs to be stones that are left unturned. You have to flip over every single one. You have to explore every single avenue on what could potentially happen. And again, the thing that my biggest problem with Glenn is that the whole Justin Fields thing, oh, what happens if the Jets offense isn't going well, what happens if they're down at halftime? Again, what happens if they're, if they need a spark and nothing's really happening offensively? You go to Tyrod Taylor. It's a really obvious choice. But again, my biggest problem that I've seen from Aaron Glenn through 7 weeks came in yesterday's game. How the team did not have a pseudo game plan, a miniature game plan for Tyrod Taylor in the event that he needs to come in. Look, I'm sorry, I just don't. For a run-heavy team that doesn't have Garrett Wilson, and we're not down 30, we're not playing, no disrespect to Carolina, it's a 4-win team, it's a good football team, but they're not the Super Bowl favorites. They're not expected to make the NFC Championship. We are down by, 10 points? 10 points. And the quote-unquote game plan is to have Tyrod Taylor drop back and throw it every down, throwing it deep 4 times in the second half. That's so unlike the Jets. So I just don't understand how something like that could not have been handled throughout the week. Given everything that we've seen so far, it's pretty obvious. It is pretty obvious that the Jets offense is struggling. We are not suggesting, hey, you know what? We better have a second half game plan just in case we bench Mahomes at halftime and, make sure Gardner Minshew feels comfortable. No, the writing was on the wall here. Lots of people saw this coming. Hey, if the offense struggles, especially with no G5, maybe we have to turn to Tyrod. And it just felt like that decision caught the Jets completely off guard for whatever reason. And I don't know how. I don't know how it felt like the Jets were so unprepared to play Taylor. Throw it every down, panic, please, chunk play, we need an explosive play. That's what it felt like. Tyrod, can you extend? And by the way, the Jets players aren't perfect. There were drops. Actually, one of the deep shots that Tanner Engstrand called up, the trick play to Lazard down the field, that was, I mean, Lazard had the guy beat for a mile. Like, that was, looking back at the All-22, what a great play call that was. I'm not anti-deep ball here. I've been begging for the Jets to throw deep balls, but it's just kind of weird that you decide to throw that many in 2 quarters compared to the first 6 games of the NFL season. Just very, very weird to have this complete 180 on, offensive philosophy. So very strange. Anyway, the point that I was about to make was, the players, I think, poorly executed a lot. There were many moments where you're like, man, that player has to make that play. That player has to make that catch. That player has to make that block. We can't have a penalty there. So it's not all on the coaching staff. And again, you look at Tanner's plan coming out. I didn't necessarily mind it with trying to get Justin Fields in rhythm early, but it just looked like he felt uncomfortable. Like that wasn't his game. And, if you're not going to throw the ball deep, you're not going to get Justin outside of the pocket, and he struggles in the quick game, I think just the better option is just to move to Tyrod Taylor, or, if Tyrod isn't up to the challenge, then you at least see what you have in Brady Cook later on down the year. I mean, we are only 7 weeks in, but it's just, I don't know. I just, when I saw Tyrod come in and it just felt total panic mode, throw, down by how much? 1 possession, 2 possessions? Understanding who we're playing, understanding the situation. How were the Jets not prepared for a situation like that? That really makes me question the long term. Oh, Jets lose a game, clock management blunder. Okay, you can learn from that kind of stuff, and I guess you can learn from this too. But how does something like that just go right over everyone's head? Personally, and look, coming up with a game plan is difficult. It's not just something that you can do in 20 minutes, but in my opinion, there needed to be somewhat of a mini game plan, like a 30% size of an actual game plan in the event that Taylor had to play, where at least there's somewhat of a roadmap that you can follow, as opposed to just like, it just felt like you're calling plays on the fly. And yeah, of course you could blame Tanner Engstrand there, but at the end of the day, that falls on the head coach. Aaron Glenn is not buried in defensive play calling. No, he's the CEO. I mean, think about all the issues that we had with Robert Saleh being the CEO style of head coach, the managerial style. He's not calling defensive plays. All that's handled by Jeff Ulbrich. He has a, macro perspective look on the entire roster, what's happening on game day. He's clearing these plays. It's not like his headset's muted on offensive stuff. Oh, I'm a defensive guy, I can't listen to the offensive stuff. No, he's listening. There's no point for him to be the managerial style of head coach if he's not going to have any sort of offensive input, or if he's just going to be an observer of the offense. I don't mind observing and letting your coordinators do what you got to do, but in big critical situations, like, the head coach needs to come in and make these, determinations, right? What's the offensive call on 3rd down? What's the offensive call on fourth down? What's happening in the red zone? This is something that you need your head coach to be involved in. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And as always, go Jets.